Good morning, everyone.
We are at the Alberta College of Body Art today. Very exciting. The owner, she seems very, very cool and talented, so I'm very excited to get started and have her show her whatever she wants to show us.
And you're going to see us try to maybe do a tattoo. Not on a real person, but just train for it. Yeah. So let's go check it out. Hey everyone, welcome back. So this morning we are at the Alberta College of Body Art with owner Bobbi Jo.
Hi everyone.
How are you doing?
Good, I'm fantastic. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. We're super excited.
Yeah.
We have a really cool activity planned. So yeah, we're really excited. But first, we're going to sit down, get to know you, get to know the Alberta College of Body Art and your business and the wide scope of things that I feel like you offer and do, because there's a lot here.
Yes.
Yeah. So we will just start with you telling us a bit about yourself.
So I am 43 years old. I grew up in Grand Prairie. I'm not actually born here. My lineage started in Beaver First Nation up by High Level. I'm status. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm a mother of, I guess I would be like a teen mom. So I had my son when I was 15. The only one I ever had, and then I never wanted to do that again. And I started tattooing, I'm not quite sure the exact month or year, but definitely over 10 years ago. Yep.
Wow, thank you so much. So living in Grand Prairie, what brought you to Grand Prairie? Because you said you weren't born here, but...
Oh, my parents separated when my parents separated. I was actually born in Peace River. They separated and I came here with my dad.
Gotcha.
Kind of stayed here. I don't know if my plan was to stay in Grand Prairie, but then, like I said, I got pregnant when I was really young. So his dad and I just kind of raised him here and been here ever since. Grand Prairie is a fantastic city, though. So it's got a lot of opportunities and growth prospects for us. So it's home.
Mm-hmm. So you've enjoyed it then?
Yeah. So I've been here since like 1992. Wow. So yeah, it's home.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's been a common theme we've seen of people, maybe not necessarily planning to stay, but a lot of them end up staying. Or
it gets in your bones. There's a lot of people that leave Grand Prairie and then they come back and end up staying here. So there's something about it, for sure. Yeah. And
I think the Alberta College of Body Art is something so amazing that Grand Prairie has to offer. So can you speak a bit about what it is?
Well, I'll have to kind of start back at my tattooing roots. So I've always been artistic, drawn and painted my entire life. Like much of my family members, Indigenous people are kind of artistic, especially in my lineage anyway. I kind of always looked at tattooing and like I could do it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but sometimes you look at something and you're like, man, I could totally do that. The problem was back then there wasn't a lot of options for career entry. So I don't know. My brother was having this tattoo party, so essentially it's what it sounds like. The artist was completely professional, clean, had a separate room, all of that kind of stuff. And so because I'm a brat, I asked him and my brother. He was tattooing my brother, and I asked if I could try it out. So they let me, and I tattooed like 3 initials on his back that I ended up covering up later. But he called me a natural, gave me my first machine. Told me where to order from, and away I went. So I started looking around for apprenticeships in Grand Prairie, going to different shops, but couldn't find one, which is actually kind of the case a lot of the time. So I started tattooing at my house. I tattooed at my house for like 4.5 years. There's still a stigma attached whenever you're getting a tattoo from a house. It doesn't matter if my whole basement was set up as a shop, so it was really professional, but it didn't work. And so I started looking for like a little office space in Grand Prairie, and this is kind of weird because the places that would rent to me wouldn't pass the Alberta Health inspection, so you have to get your space inspected. It couldn't have carpets, it needed to have a sink, all that kind of stuff. And the ones that had that wouldn't rent to a tattoo artist. So it had nothing to do with me being Indigenous. It was because there was still a stigma attached to tattoo artists being delinquents and stuff. So that was great. And so, I really enjoyed tattooing until like three or 4 in the morning, in my pajamas, and had complete control over everything, right? But like I said, I kind of wanted to be a little bit more professional. Having strangers come to my house, it was just started getting old, right? So I started looking for a bigger space. I ended up finding a large location, a street over, and that's where we opened Creative Inc., which is now what this space is. So when I looked at the space, I said, well, man, what do I do? Like, do I go big or do I go home? Well, I just came from home and I don't want to go back there. So I sat down with my family. At the time, it was my husband, my son, my daughter-in-law, a whole handful of cousins and relatives that decided to help me on my journey. So that's what we decided to do, is open this tattoo shop. In hindsight, though, I think I probably could have had a little bit more planning, starting a business, a little bit more knowledge about how businesses are run and stuff. So it was a bit of a struggle at the start. All new tattoo shops kind of go through that same growing pain for the first year or two. And then at some point, I can't remember, I think 2016 or something like that, I started having like vision problems. So I started realizing that I was never going to be like on Ink Master, because I was going to eventually go blind. So I think that my career is going to get cut short because of vision issues, and I don't really want to get LASIK. That weirds me out. So anyways, I started looking around, and I noticed that there was this growing trend, not just in North America, but globally, that where standardized training was starting to become a thing, right? So I mentioned previously that the only career entry up to that point was shop apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. Those can only found, they're like a unicorn, man. Like you have to know somebody in the shop. They have to be willing to mentor you and take the time to invest in you. And then there's often free labor involved in exchange for that training. And so, like, in that economic time, which was actually better than what we are now, it was really unrealistic to be able to work somewhere for like full time and then still support yourself and your family, right? Mm-hmm. So now I started noticing this trend, and I was like, okay, well, let's look into that. So I started a business, and I started developing the curriculum in 2017. And it took me from that point to 2019 before we got our government license. So to put that into perspective, like a new school or a new program can take up to like used to take up to 8 weeks, and ours took 2 years. The reason why it took so long is because it had never been done before. We are the first ones in all of Canada that is a post-secondary institution in terms of like government student loans, just like any other college. So there is other training in Canada, but it ranges from 3 days for permanent makeup, which is fundamentally tattooing, to like 2 or 3 weeks. So ours is the equivalent of a 3-year shop apprenticeship. In terms of how much time that you spend one-on-one with a mentor in a shop environment. And so we had our first private students in 2018 while I was waiting for my license, and then 2019 we got the license, which accessed student aid funding. And the student aid funding is actually available across Canada, so you would just apply to your own province to take our program. And then 2021, I took another leap of faith because I sure love to find out whether or not I can fly. And so we moved from like, I think it was 1,200 square feet to this building, which is 7,500 square feet. So, and I'm like, man, I better get students to be able to pay for this. So it's been a journey for sure. But what sets us apart from other training opportunities that are available is our hands-on, coached, corrective, supervised training. So our students are producing work that would rival a 3-4 year tattoo artist after our 6-month program.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in a traditional shop apprenticeship, they might be lucky if they did 1 or 2 tattoos at the end of the first year. Our students are doing upwards of 40 tattoo sessions in the 6-month period, because the only way to learn is to do it, right? Fake skin can only get you so far. And so our program is structured. They start on fake skin, then they move to people for outlines, and then they go back to the fake skin to learn how to do shading and color, and then we get those original volunteers back in to finish their tattoos. Our course also includes a 3-week practicum. And we have like a crazy big team of business consultants that come in to teach career components that they would never find all in one place, such as photography. Because tattoo artists, it's not just about ink and needles anymore. We have to wear many different hats. We need to have some kind of basic knowledge in finance. We have to know legal stuff, liability, insurance, photography, art, health and safety is crazy important. So our health and safety component of our program is around the 2-week mark. So we focus heavily on proper disinfection procedures, infection control, all of that kind of stuff. And also Alberta health legislation, because that's our governing body. These are not Bobbi Jo's opinions. This is industry standard information, but also with like I said, a heavy focus on being safe, being professional, being ethical. The tattoo industry has went through a major transformation over the last 10 years. And it's no longer artist driven. It used to be artist driven where you kind of got what I told you to get, where it's going to go on you, what colors we're going to use, the size, everything was determined by the tattoo artist. And you can't have that anymore. That is not the type of tattoo artist that our clientele, and the reason we exist, wants to see from their tattoo artists. There needs to be collaboration, and there needs to be more understanding that this is your time, your money, and your body. Right? We don't own any of that. So my new generation of tattoo artists understands, you have to be flexible, and it's now a marriage between, being an artist, but also being essentially a business person, and with that comes public responsibility. So,
wow. Sorry, there was so much to unpack in that, so I'm just going to take us back a bit to some of the things you'd said earlier. But thank you so much for sharing all of that. You'd mentioned before about how, there's that idea of delinquency in as tattoo artists and things like that. What are your opinions on maybe some misconceptions that people have in regards to what it means to be a tattoo artist or to have tattoos even, I think?
Yeah. I don't think that tattooing is in the shadows or underground nearly as much as it used to be. Case in point, law enforcement. Prior to 2015, the U.S. Army wasn't allowed to have any tattoos, let alone show them.
Oh, wow.
Our own RCMP officers were allowed to start showing their tattoos, I believe, in 2018, around there. So they were always... they always had to have the tattoo body sleeve. So it had to stop at the wrist, at the neckline, ankles, so that you could cover it with clothing. Now you see RCMP officers, law enforcement, enforcement services all over the place, sheriffs, everybody sporting tattoos. They don't have any on their faces, of course, and I doubt that'll ever be a thing, but even on the top of the hands. And so, this increased boost in societal acceptance for tattooing and piercing has really transformed the entire landscape globally. Now we have anti-discrimination laws that you can't, not hire someone based on their appearance, and that includes tattoos and piercings. So I think that, what we're trying to do specifically is a lot of the times when you have improper education, you end up doing things wrong. Right? And sometimes, we're dealing with blood. We're dealing with blood and permanent artwork. So the unfortunate part is those mistakes are permanent mistakes in most cases. And so, excuse me, I do truly, in my gut, believe that we are elevating this profession by providing proper standardized curriculum-based training. Because whenever someone does something wrong as a tattoo artist, the entire industry takes a kicking. Right? And it's, you hear nightmares about tattoo artists reusing needles or pouring ink back into the bottles and stuff like that. And so is it because they're being losers, or is it because they didn't know any better, because there wasn't any training? Because you're really at the mercy of what someone wants to teach you and what they know themselves, right? And so I'm not claiming to be any kind of an expert at all about anything. But I have been doing this a long enough time to be able to break it down into bite-sized chunks, to be able to explain it in a way that anybody would be able to understand, and that the evidence is in what my students are doing now. A lot of them, I think three so far for sure, and which is a high number, have started their own businesses, their own shops.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's the kind of confidence that you'll get when you have a consistent training. So, back to whether or not they are, perpetuate any kind of stereotypes. Maybe they did before, because it was kind of like that, right? Like the history of tattooing doesn't have bright and shiny roots. It just really doesn't. But now, I don't think that anybody's judged for having tattoos. I think the face ones, for sure, definitely might, give out a certain impression. But, and the eyeball ones, I'd never do those. I would never tattoo anybody's eyeballs.
You can get a tattoo on your eye.
Yeah. And it's not actually with a machine. You're like injecting with like a syringe, like ink into the sclera, the white part. Incredibly dangerous, for sure. So absolutely. I think that some tattoos for sure might give off an impression, but people are so accepting nowadays, like they've never been before, about appearances in general, about everybody and the way that people look, and accepting and not body shaming, right? But I will say that there are still some generations that would prefer that you didn't have face tattoos and hand tattoos. So we try not to, we try to get that message out as well, that especially if you're like super young, you're probably going to regret some of them, especially like a big, crazy hand tattoo with knuckles that look like you potentially are involved in stuff. I don't know. Anyways, it's just really about educating our clients and making sure that they understand the gravity of what it is that they're going to get and how it's going to age. And the fact that they don't ever stay perfect, and how I felt 10 years ago isn't the same way that I feel now. And that's going to apply to tattoos. So you're putting them in really visible spots, then it is going to cause you some issues later. And those might be financial issues when we're talking about laser removal or cover-ups, right? So, but in terms of general delinquency, I don't think that we're perceived that way as much as we used to be. But that's partially because the industry as a whole are now striving to be better and do better, because not knowing better is not okay anymore, right? It's not okay when you're dealing with blood and bloodborne pathogens and risks, permanent artwork, all that kind of stuff. You can't just say, I don't know. I don't know how to do that, or I don't know anything about that. Like, it's your job. We have a public responsibility as personal public service providers to find out, right? That's kind of how I see it anyways, how I teach it.
So beginning back, just starting out being creative, art, all that, first tattoo at your brother's tattoo party, then leading into a business, and then leading even further into actually educating other people. What was that process like? Because I feel like a business is one thing, but then like an education just seems like a whole different scope.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a ride for sure. I don't know if there's something wrong with me mentally. Sometimes, cause it's been a journey, and I will tell you that, I've faced so much negativity from the industry itself about, they don't like tattoo schools. Tattoo artists do not like tattoo schools. The general consensus, and I will say that this is changing. And so my opposition has become increasingly quiet over the last recent years. But when I first started it, I was getting threats from like Hawaii and Red Deer, Florida. They were going to come break my hands and burn my building down and all of that stuff, just because they were severely opposed to this whole like pay for education kind of business model. You're often seen as like a whistleblower, a trader, because this is a very, very elite career, and one that has to be earned. And the unfortunate reality of tattoo shop apprenticeships is sometimes they were kind of abusive and uncomfortable, right? And you had to earn your stripes and toughen you up, and so I didn't see why anybody had to like go through that kind of stuff just to learn something. And I've always been that type of person that's like, well, really, who are you to tell me I can't do what I want to do with my life, right? And so I don't see myself as any kind of trailblazer or this or that, because I didn't invent this concept. It was other brave people all over the world that started this, right? Because they saw a need, and the old way sometimes just doesn't work anymore. Sometimes you have to progress, right? And embrace new things, new ideas, new concepts. And so I find myself to be more of a door opener, because people are resilient, man. They're like super resilient. If you want to find out how to do something and someone tells you no, you can't, if you really want to, you're going to find a way, right? And that's what happens with tattoo artists when they learn at home by themselves. So back when I first started tattooing, Google wasn't a thing. There was no tutorials. There wasn't any documents you could read. There was nobody to ask. And if you did ask as a brand new tattoo artist, often they'll be like, no, get out of here, kind of thing, right? Go get an apprenticeship. But again, like they're very, very elusive, absolutely elusive. And the reason why they're so elusive is because as a tattoo owner or a tattoo artist in a shop, every hour I'm spending with you is an hour that I'm not being able to fund my own life, right? So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and I think, not that I know anything, but I feel as though the school also provides a more accessible way for individuals to get this training, because like you were saying, some tattoo shops won't do the apprenticeship, and having that student aid option through the provinces, and you're giving people a chance when they might have not actually had that for themselves to begin with.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
So the other reality about it is, despite what the tattoo artist community feels, we are going to be, like, our industry is changing, and it's changing without our permission. And the reason why I say it like that is because nobody wants change. Change is uncomfortable. And the status quo is where you've sat for X amount of years and it works for you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the problem is that with this increased societal acceptance, awareness, expectations, you're going to have a lot more regulatory bodies and a lot more other government agencies that are now going to be like, oh, hey, so we should probably check that, right? And so when they say that, hey, we should check that, they're not just checking in Grand Prairie. They're checking like provincially, nationally, globally about what other countries are doing in terms of regulations and new processes. For example, one of the new things that we never experienced before is you're not allowed to have premixed gray wash anymore, like your bulk gray wash. I can't make my own. And tattoo artists have been doing that for decades, right? We have to now use sterile water when we're doing like mixing our own gray wash in little ink caps, right? So, and the thing is that it's not necessarily the health authorities that are making these changes. It's actually insurance companies. Oh. Right? They want to know that you've been trained properly so that they can take on the risk of insuring you. Mm-hmm. And if you can't provide that, then it's harder for you to get insurance. And all of tattoo artists need insurance. We need liability insurance. And if you have a shop, you need commercial general liability insurance. It's actually those guys that are doing it. They're the ones that are pioneering the changes. And then it kind of just rolls downhill. But like I said, I didn't invent the concept. I just started it here in Grand Prairie. Now, in terms of like accessibility, so the funding absolutely helps, but I'm still in Grand Prairie. Nobody wants to come to Grand Prairie. Like for training, especially for like short course, right? Like it's just a little bit hard to get people to see the benefit. We do have a partnership though with the local university. So I think they're a university now, Northwest Polytechnic.
Yeah.
They they allow our students to stay in their dorms. So that helps with the whole relocation to come here to take our program. I will say, without a doubt, there's nothing will beat hands-on instruction. Nothing. But the other options is YouTube, right? Like you can learn how to tattoo by yourself using YouTube, and there's like a million tutorials. And I wish I would have had those back in the day because that would have made this way easier. But I essentially just started doing this just because I remember how hard it was. I remember how struggling, and I remember getting defeated, and I remember feeling ashamed because of a mistake that I learned later on was really avoidable. But I didn't know anybody, and there wasn't anyone to ask. And so I really just wanted to help younger versions of myself because they're going to, like I said, they're going to do it anyway. They're going to find a way to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. But helping somebody learn the right way actually doesn't harm our industry the way that the tattoo artists think my school is doing. It's actually benefiting the industry. It's creating professionals. It's going to be a viable career, and every trade started like this. Every trade started like this, where there was backlash and nobody wanted it to be regulated because they don't want the government sticking their nose in. But we will no longer have a choice. It will eventually be the only entry into tattooing, just like anything else, will be some kind of school. And in fact, actually, the U.S. is probably one of the strictest places for tattooing. They're about 10 years ahead of us. In Oregon, for example, you have to write a state exam. They no longer, they no longer recognize shop apprenticeship training. You have to get a letter of an endorsement from a shop, and like I said, the state exam. You have to have bloodborne pathogens, which is a basic, very basic infection control training. And actually, speaking of which, we are finalizing our own bloodborne pathogens online course. That's really, it's infection control. Essentially what it is, right? Like dealing with spills and blood and all that kind of stuff or whatever, but mine is going to be geared specifically to brand new tattoo artists and brand new piercers, because the other ones that are available, and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody else's, but they are very vague, and they don't go into detail about setting up a station and how to wrap your machine and the number of glove changes that we need to do in the day, in the day. Right? They talk about glove changes like once in the other ones. Ours, we're changing our gloves and washing our hands like a lot, right? It gets rough on the hands.
Just need some lotion if you're allowed to have that. Probably not, actually.
No,
never mind.
No. At home, when you leave, you can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that blood-borne pathogen course that you're finalizing online, what are some of the other courses that are available for individuals to take?
First aid.
First aid?
Yep. So I'm a first aid instructor also. I also have a lot of hats. So I'm a commissioner for oaths as well in Alberta, and I'm a certified first aid instructor. And so I teach our first aid classes. But essentially any kind of wound care management courses that you can take from any types of colleges online would be fine, even if it's proper information. Bloodborne pathogens for sure should be mandatory. Absolutely should be mandatory for everybody getting into it, and it's not just for tattoo artists and piercers. Anybody that has the potential to be exposed to someone else's blood really should be taking a bloodborne pathogens course. So that's like estheticians, nail people, nail techs, sorry, not people. Anybody, outreach workers, picking up needles, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm.
Students coming here, what can they expect to learn?
So we teach absolutely, like our course is crazy comprehensive. It really is. So we start off with history, because you need to know the OG, and we do teach with coil tattoo machines, which is kind of crazy because that's like, there's a whole revitalization going on with social media with coil machines, because those are the jackhammer ones that are like really loud. And the reason why I teach with those is because it's such an aggressive machine. that forces you to learn how to adjust yourself. So you adjust your own pressure, your speed, and movements. Whereas a rotary, which is the really quiet ones, there's softer hitting, right? So if you don't really know enough about voltage and needle hang and stuff like that, you could chew up the skin with either one of them, right, and cause blowouts. Blowouts can't be fixed. We talk about history, we talk about styles, we talk about the machines themselves, voltage, and how that relates. So voltage is the number that you see on any of the dials on tattoo machines. For coil, that is what impacts the punch of the needle into the skin. But the speed itself it does affect speed slightly. It's all together, right? But the machine itself is actually set up to be specifically a liner or a shader or a color packer. And there's different variations of those kind of machines as well. And then with the rotary machines, voltage is all of it. So it's the speed and the punch as well. Then you've got strokes, which is like how far the needle goes into the skin. But despite, I guess, misconceptions, there's only so far into the skin that we can go, right? Like you can't, there isn't some magic layer that we don't know about that we miss sometimes, which can happen with like hands and fingers because they fade so fast, right? And so we learn a lot about skin. And actually we have a nurse. One of our business consultants is a nurse that goes over aftercare, wound care, complications, the skin in general, like the anatomy, and where we're putting the tattoo ink, because that's important to learn proper depth for the needle. Because if you go into there's 3 sections of skin, and if you go into the wrong one, you're going to be giving an irreversible blue haze around your tattoo or the line work. Then we move into, like I said, the fake skin. Fake skin can only take you so far, though. Like, it really can't. It'll teach you techniques to get used to the machine. 80% visual of what it's supposed to look like. And then the real learning comes from skin, because fake skin behaves. The ink stays exactly where you want to put it, where you put it. It doesn't twitch. It doesn't bleed or swell or get red, right? And so those are variables that we can't control, but they absolutely can affect every single tattoo, and you need to be able to adjust with each one. And the body has different thicknesses all over, so you have to adjust to that as well, right? Yeah, different skin thicknesses. So like your elbow is kind of like leathery.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's a little bit harder to tattoo that versus like thin areas like the wrist. So if you don't know how to pull up and adjust or push in or whatever, like adjust yourself, you'll have issues. And so that's where learning by yourself, it becomes challenging, because no one really, watching a video versus like having somebody explain the video to you and then demonstrate the video or that technique is I know that there's nothing like it, right? So we've been asked a lot to put our stuff online. But I'm really struggling with that, because I feel like that's what makes us great, is that we have someone with you the entire time. We have small class sizes, so I'm not trying to puppy mill the tattoo industry, despite what my opposition thinks I'm doing. We've actually gotten students from all over the country already. So Ontario, Northwest Territories, BC, Saskatchewan. So like they're coming from everywhere, because we're just a really great option in terms of how comprehensive our course is to just learning in person, like learning in that collective, that environment, bouncing questions off, hearing other answers, and then having a structured format really helps everybody. Helps us, it helps them. They know what to expect. They get a syllabus when they first start. So we have an entrance exam, which is bizarre to a lot of people because it's tattooing, right? Like, so we're not an academic college, but we also don't want to be taking students from high school, right? Because there's no guarantee that you're going to be a tattoo artist. I'm not a wizard. I can't create a tattoo artist. I can take your existing artistic ability and show you the tools of the trade and the techniques and how to be safe and not scar people or spread disease and all of that stuff, but I can't make you a tattoo artist. So there's no guarantee that you're going to be, a full-time booked 8 months out kind of tattoo artist after a 6-month course. That's really unrealistic, and I make sure that my students understand that. Like, tattooing is a lifelong journey. It absolutely is. Like, I'm still learning. When I first learned how to do stippling, that that dotted technique for flowers, man, I wanted to quit. I couldn't figure it out. And I was trying not to be an old dog that like, oh no, I don't need to learn that. Then when I switched, I was one of the last ones in my shop to switch from the jackhammer coil to the rotary. I wanted to quit again because I couldn't figure it out. I was so used to like how heavy and aggressive that other machine was, and then to move to something that's softer, I really struggled with that. So, and again, if I was by myself, I would have just quit, right? It's just hard. It's hard. It's super hard to try and learn on your own. But it's not just me that's doing this. I have an entire team of tattoo artists and piercers. I have that extensive business team. So I have a lawyer too. I have an accountant. I have a nurse. We also recently introduced mental health to our program, because tattoo artists are often, it's a really intimate situation, like a really intimate environment, touching someone and causing pain and being with them for hours. Sometimes you get, the conversations get kind of heavy, right? It's almost therapy for some people. And part of the reason why I think that people like to talk to strangers is because I don't know your boyfriend, right? I'm not going to judge him. I'm not going to judge you. I don't even know who you're talking about. But it's a way for them to release things that are on their mind. And so like having a brand new tattoo artist have something unloaded on them that they're not equipped to deal with, we've thought it was incredibly important to have that aspect or that component in our course. So now we have a mental health professional coming in to talk about what to do with that information. How do you process it? How do you unpack it? What do you even say? What do you even say to someone? Because when I have some crazy stories told to me, I don't reciprocate, and I'm not going to, because that's not a me moment, that's a you moment, right? And so just teaching them skills like that to be better. Be better, do better, right? Don't bully people. Don't boss them around. Don't change their design without asking. Don't put on crooked stencils. If you wouldn't want it on you, don't put it on someone else, right? And simple things like don't touch people without gloves on. That's gross. Super gross. You shouldn't be doing it. Instagram. Like, we also do social media training as well, because that's incredibly critical to that's our calling card. Photography, how to take proper photos so that they can broadcast their work properly in a professional manner. There's nothing worse than a shiny tattoo in the shade, right? Like, you can't see it. Just those kind of those kind of skills. And it's a broad range of things that we're introduced. No two courses have ever been the same, because we're constantly striving to add new things. And I think that I'm going to have to increase the course length with all the stuff that I'm packing into it now, which isn't a bad thing, right? It absolutely isn't a bad thing. But they know that when they leave our course, you're still going to be learning. Don't expect to know everything right off the bat. You're not an expert. You're probably never going to be an expert. I'm not an expert. Maybe they are. And if they are, they got to come and teach for me. So that'd be fantastic. But it's really just leaving here understanding that this was fundamentals, right? And you're still going to struggle. And it doesn't matter if you're 10, 14, 20 years in the game, you're still going to make mistakes. It's how you manage those mistakes, right? Is key, right? Owning it and fixing it to the best of your ability, right? So to think that tattoo artists, just because they've reached a certain proficiency or a certain level in their career, that they never make mistakes is really unrealistic, and it sets up brand new tattoo artists to try and reach an unattainable level of skill, right? So that in itself is going to cause issues. And teaching them also that like Instagram, that's all, like a lot of that stuff's like filtered, right? And it's enhanced and things look glowing. And so then when they see their tattoo and there's no redness on Instagram, and then there's redness on theirs, they're going to think that they did something wrong. But this is real life. There's no filter in real life, right? So just like approaching and addressing misconceptions, just from social media even, is beneficial to brand new tattoo artists. Yeah.
So you mentioned wanting to extend the course length. How long are the courses like currently?
Oh, 6 months. So we have tattooing and we also have body piercing too. So the body piercing is licensed. We're also the only one in Canada.
Oh, wow.
So 6 months full time. It started off like really like short, like super short, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I really didn't. When we first started, I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't.
It sounds like you know what you're doing now. So
Yeah.
you could have fooled me.
Yeah. So like I was saying, like at some point this is going to be regulated. The course itself is going to be regulated. Like the industry itself is going to be regulated, where there's going to be some educational requirements. And so it's moving towards that. So like we have an opportunity to work with Industry Pathways, which is a division of the Alberta Apprenticeship Board, to start to provide government recognized training for tattooing. So that would be on the way, but I don't know if I want to do that yet, because like I really enjoy my legs. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but it's, at some point it'll be like that, where it'll be similar to like hairstyling, right? Like when you take a hairstyling course, I think it's like 9 or 10 months. And that's like the first level. And then the second one is where you have to earn like the 1,400 hours in a salon environment. And then after that, at that point, you would be a journeyman, right? So tattooing is going to, at some point down the road, be similar. So I don't know if I'm going to increase the course now, or just wait until they make me do it. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I have no idea where we're going from here. But I do know, like back to what I was talking about, how our course is the equivalent of a 3-year shop apprenticeship. So you remember I was saying like about how every hour I spend with you and stuff like that is an hour that I'm not tattooing myself or for myself. So that actually translates to about 240 hours a year in a tattoo shop. The rest of the time you're mopping the floors, sweeping the floors, being the receptionist, janitorial, and working and drawing. Like you're spending an unreal amount of time drawing, right? You might be working on fake skin or something, but so our course is, because it's full-time Monday to Friday, all day, that's why I said that it's the equivalent of a 3-year shop apprenticeship, and it absolutely is, right? So even though it sounds short, and it sounds shorter than it should. Now, when you say it out loud, 6 months, that's not a long time. This also, tattooing is like one of the coolest careers you could ever have. Like, there is no other industry that would pay this kind of money outside of oil field or degrees. Like the entry wage is anywhere from $35, $40, $50, $60 an hour. And so after a 6-month course to be able to achieve that kind of income, the ROI on what our tuition is actually almost instant. It's almost immediate after this course. But then, as with anything else, it also depends on your own drive, right? So how much you want to work, how much you want to put into it, how much you want to market yourself. But it's a really customizable career. So if I wanted my 8 to 4 to fund my tattooing, I could, and that's what I did when I first started tattooing. Is I actually worked as a corporate territory manager, and I worked for, I was a corporate territory manager when I opened the first shop, and so I worked Monday to Friday 60 hours with that job, and then I tattooed evenings and weekends.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So it was, you can do whatever you want to do with it. And the other neat thing about tattooing is that it's transferable. You could literally take your skill anywhere in the world and be a tattoo artist, right? Because right now most places don't have a lot of educational transitional requirements kind of thing. So you'd have to check with the municipality of where you're going, but essentially you just get a business license and set up shop, or get an inspection. Absolutely have to get an inspection, like health inspection, to get started. But yeah.
What was that, working 60 hours a week and then tattooing evening and weekends, like that period of time like for you?
Oh, it was great because I chose it. And I mean, I can't really complain about any of the struggles that I've had because I chose this journey. So I can't really get mad at anybody but myself, but it's definitely been up and down for sure. So we've you know, run into some issues with delays and, you know, just standard kicks to the teeth that everybody gets in life, right? I mean, whatever. But working that many hours, it was at the time, I didn't really see it as a career. I didn't see it as anything other than doing like cool artwork, and I got money for it, right? Like I was getting paid to do art, which is like, it was incredible. And I was in complete control of it. So if I didn't feel like tattooing, I didn't have to. And it wasn't paying my bills. It wasn't supporting me. So at the time, it was more, when I was doing it that way, it was more of a hobby, right? But then I started crap in the bed with both. So, you know, I started my tattoo shop, and then I was still doing that. And it wasn't working. You know, like when you try to do too many things and then they all start suffering. So that's what was happening. And then my job, I got laid off from my job because they took I was the youngest one. In my corporate job, I was at a disadvantage for a number of reasons. But now I look back on it, even though I was angry about it at the time, it was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to jump off the cliff to do the tattoo shop full time. And that's when I seen the most growth, right? Yeah, if I wouldn't have done that, or if the decision wasn't made for me, I would have probably still tried to do both unsuccessfully for an indeterminate amount of time, just because that's, you know, how it goes. But yeah, once I started working full time at the shop and tattooing full time, because you never know if you're going to starve, right? Like you just like doing a new business and services like this, where you're really dependent on whether or not somebody wants to come to you, essentially, right? And I was talking about before about how when you first start a tattoo shop, it takes about a year for people to even know you exist, to know where you are, and to trust you, right? So to build up clientele, it takes a long time, and a lot of times people don't survive that first year. I wouldn't have either. If it wasn't for my family. And even with my family here, like my mom is the manager of the shop, and she's been the manager like since 2015. She knows probably more about tattooing than I do, just because of her constant exposure to it all day long, dealing with multiple tattoo artists and stuff, right? But if it wasn't for my family, I wouldn't still, there's no way that I would have been still in business or still like have gotten this far. Because you really need a strong support system when you're doing crazy things. Yeah.
You spoke a bit about challenges and struggles, because everyone goes through those in, you know, their own way, shape, or form. Is it that strong support system that's helped you along the way, or what has been the thing that keeps you going? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the only thing that makes this worthwhile is, and it's going to sound so phony, but really, when I see the change from a scared individual where their hands are shaking with a tattoo machine to chomping at the bit at the end of the 6th month, because and it's bittersweet, because they want to leave me, you know, and it's seeing someone for every day for 6 months as you develop friendships, right? And so I know that they got to get on their own, but it's really neat to see that transformation in someone, and knowing that I was a part of that, right? And I helped with that. And because of us and what we're doing, now they have a real shot at being successful. And not that they wouldn't have had otherwise, or that this was the only way and all that jazz or whatever, but I know for a fact that our program works. It absolutely does. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. Also, after this long, I'm pretty sure I can't work for anybody ever again. I've just been on my own for too long, and you know, with that comes its own challenges also. When you have nobody above you or nobody to answer to, you know, some days it's hard to stay disciplined. And this is me being brutally honest here, because sometimes you know, if I don't know if I'm making the right decision when it comes to bringing a product in or doing this or whatever. So like sometimes I wouldn't mind if I had like a board to like give me shit sometimes maybe or something, or like, hey, get that done, because like I'll have it, my to-do list is probably as high as I am, but nobody's telling me to get it done. So like that's why it stays so long sometimes. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of being a sole owner of a business, is that the accountability has to come from yourself, and sometimes I don't want to give myself accountability. You know what I mean? Or but for the most part, the business struggles that we've had are general. Like it's nothing that anybody else didn't go through. Everybody was traumatized and tortured from COVID, right? So a lot of business, unfortunately, my heart breaks for so many of them that didn't survive that. We were lucky that we did, and the only reason why I think that a lot of tattoo businesses survived is because they are body image supporters, enhancers, right? Like they're like getting a new haircut. You get a new tattoo, you feel pretty damn good about yourself, you know? Yeah. Especially when it comes to like memorials, mantras, covering self-harm scars, you know, that kind of stuff. Like tattoos are incredibly powerful, and they used to be recession proof, and that was statistically proven fact. Like they were not seasonal, they were year round. It's actually a multi-billion-dollar global industry with an annual growth rate of like 8.4%. Oh, wow. Yeah, so it's not going anywhere. But the economy this year has been kind of weird. It's been slower than any year that I've seen it. But we're still in business, and so are a lot of the other tattoo shops in town. So you just keep plugging away. And I've had a lot of business supports as well. So one of the things that I learned about business is if you ever get into business, find a networking group. Like a group of people that also own businesses. So like an entrepreneurial group, right? Because entrepreneurship is isolating sometimes. Like you can talk till you're blue in the face about your passion, right? To your friends or your family, and eventually their eyes are just going to glaze over and they're going to go cross-eyed. And because they just don't really understand the weight on your shoulders and the fact that it doesn't leave when you leave here. It doesn't go away. It follows you home and it torments you at nighttime, right? And so one of the best decisions and one of the late decisions that I made was joining a business networking group and talking to, and it's a women's group here in Grand Prairie, and just hashing out ideas, talking about issues. It's just a really, really wonderful way to not feel alone in business. I've never had any issues with being Indigenous. I've got that question a lot too about being an Indigenous business owner. I've never ever experienced that. In school with little snot-nosed kids, for sure. For sure I did. Grew up with that, but not in business and not in Grand Prairie. I don't know. It's sad to think that other people have, but in fact, I think some doors opened simply because I was Indigenous in business, right? But no, I've never had any issues with that kind of struggle. Yeah.
Speaking of your business, where do you hope to see it in, say, 5 years?
I would like to have a facility in every province, so then people don't have to not come to Grand Prairie. So that'd be great. And if not, then I'm really, like I said, I'm really struggling with this whole online thing. It's a catch between like trying to progress your business and grow your business and make your business sustainable by doing things that will absolutely help versus having to compromise my vision for it, if that makes sense. So I have like this in-house training on site. I'm teaching you, and I'm showing you things. We're having a good laugh, and everything's great, right? To you that can't come here, but still wants to take my training, still wants me to help them, right? And so at some point I think I'm gonna have to compromise and do like Zoom classes or something, or I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I'm not quite sure, but I do believe that that's part of the expansion, that my expansion goals, I'm going to have to take that into consideration when I think of how I want to grow my business from here on out. because I do absolutely want it in different locations so that they don't have to make that choice.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how that's going to work because each province has different, right?
Yeah.
Nova Scotia is actually kind of tricky for tattooing. They have a lot of regulations. Same thing with BC. So those three are probably the ones that have the most restrictions. Not restrictions, I guess. Rules, like personal service standards. Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, because I totally see what you mean of that hands-on aspect. So unless there's some way to like have mentors in each location that then just go to
like a remote thing or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I don't know. At that point, I think I hope I'm the one that's going around checking things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the future holds for us. Like I said, this year has been kind of difficult for many businesses, many people, like everybody across the board, right? And so I think our goal for the rest of this year is simply to survive. And when things stabilize and level out a little bit, maybe then we can start looking at that. But I really don't know if it's the right time to start any big expansion plans and then, not get any students. So I think that the status quo is going to remain the same until economic variants, I guess, change or improve.
For sure. So you wear a lot of hats and have done a lot of things. What has been the most challenging part? Or like what is the most challenging part of all the work that you do?
The fact that I'm really, really poor at time management. Also biting off more than I can chew. I tend to, so I'm the board chair of one committee. I'm on the board of another committee. I'm on a planning committee for the powwow this year, in June. And I didn't have time for any of that. I really didn't have any time for any of that. But like I said, I had my son when he was 15, right? So, or when I was 15, sorry. And so he's off and married and work, and so I don't have any little small children, so really except for if you count my two bratty dogs, but but other than that, like there's really no restriction on my time, and so I think that's part of the reason why I'd rather be stressed out and busy than bored and feel like I'm not moving forward, right? So I really enjoy, and I'm the best version of myself when I am crazy busy. Yeah. Yeah.
So looking at it from the other side, what is the most rewarding part of the work? Is it that moment that you kind of spoke about before with the students?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And seeing, like, it's not even just about their confidence about tattooing. It's like seeing some of them come out of their shells completely. Like they were crazy introverted. There was always, like, there's a small fear that, they're going to get bullied. You know what I mean? Like mistreated or something. And then seeing some of them actually witnessing and some of them actually finding their voice is like, it's fantastic. And like I said, I never wanted to puppy mill it. Like I don't ever see myself having a facility with 50 or 60 people in it. It was never meant to that because I still have an insane deep respect for this industry. But what I'm trying to do is help elevate it. I'm not trying to cause it harm by providing really public information at this point, right? Like with social media and Google, it's the only difference is that I'm doing it in person, right? So I don't know. I don't know what the best thing was because, like I said, it's been a roller coaster. It's been up and down, just like everybody else. I don't know. I get a lot of pats on the back and a lot of handshakes and stuff like that, and about being the pioneer for tattoo training in Canada. And I really didn't do any of it for that. I didn't do any of that. I wanted to create a business, a legacy for my son, my grandson, maybe that they could take on this business or, I don't know, sell it or whatever they want to do when I'm done with it. It was really just that, and genuinely helping people because it's hard. There's a lot more to tattooing than people realize, and just being a part of someone's journey, taking that experience of tattooing someone and helping them through something. And there's no such thing as a simple tattoo because they all mean something, right? Except for the ones that, like, you come in for the flash and you get a little tiny thing or whatever. Maybe that one doesn't have as much meaning, but you loved it anyways, so it's still powerful. But some of them are like, when you're tattooing like massive scars on people and enhancing how they feel and feel about themselves because of the way that that body part looks now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, and then being able to teach someone that passion or have them see it in someone else, when you're teaching them, like it's great. All of it's great. But like I said, it's been a journey. For sure. I keep saying that like I hate my job, but I mean I don't. There's nothing like it. Like I said, they're long days though. Like I teach from 9 to 3, Monday to Friday, and then I tattoo from like 4 to 8.
Oh my goodness.
And then I get Sundays off.
Yay! At least you have the one day off.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a favorite tattoo that you've done on someone else?
Speaking of scars, I think it was probably that one. I mean, I love it. So I get the asked that a lot. Like, what do you specialize in? What kind of style do you like doing? I chose very early on in my career not to specialize. First of all, because I get bored very easily. If I had to come in and do the same tattoo style every single day of my life, I would have quit a long time ago. I need the variety. I really enjoy coming in and not knowing, and having 2 days, not having the same day twice, same customer, same piece, all of that stuff. And I also feel like, for me personally, that would have limited my growth as a tattoo artist because you learn with every new tattoo, every new style, colors, all of that stuff. But I think my favorite one to date was because it was such a transformative, kind of like life piece, that I felt really, really honored to be a part of that. This lady came in and she had a massive, massive scar on her inner thigh. Never wore shorts. This happened when she was 10. So like she never wore shorts her whole life, right? And I had no reason not to believe her. So I mean, like somebody says that, well, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm sure you wore shorts. Anyways, and so she went to a bunch of tattoo artists, and it wasn't arrogance at all that caused me to take this on. It was because I genuinely I felt bad. I wanted to do what I could, but I also didn't lie to her or promise things that I couldn't do, right? So I told her, we can't tattoo this like regular skin because it's not regular skin, so we have to be really careful with it, and it's going to take several sessions. It was a massive scar. And so anyways, when we first did the outline, we did shading and all of this kind of stuff, whatever, like she cried after like every session and started wearing shorts.
Yay!
Yeah, like bathing suits and shorts and stuff, because the cool thing about tattooing is you can't make the skin smooth, right? When you're tattooing over scars or cesarean scars or any kind of surgery scars, self-harm scars, tattoos can never make that flat, right? Mm-hmm. But it gives you something different to look at instead of instantly seeing a scar, right? So that one was probably one of the most profound customers that I had, just because it was so life-changing for her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite tattoo on yourself?
No, I don't like any of my tattoos.
You don't like any of them?
Well, I had
oh
one.
my gosh! How did that happen?
Well, I had an armband that was crooked because the scary biker-looking guy did it crooked, and then so I ended up covering that, and then I had a tattoo. That's also part of the reason why I teach the way that I do, because I had this armband and it was crooked, and he was scary. I was 18. I'm like, as if I'm gonna go and say anything to him, right? So, and I did. And I was like, hey, so I don't know if that's a little bit crooked or what. And anyways, and so I offered to, like, I drew a line where I thought would even it out. And then I had to pay for that too. So this is years ago, right? Like long time ago. But back in that whole, like, the artist-driven industry. Mm-hmm. Then I had another one where I had a scorpion on my ankle, and they decided to do some 3D drop shading that I didn't ask for. And then all it did was just turned it into this little blobby lobster. And so I got that covered up. And yeah. And then there was one on my back, and like just a lot of janky tattoos that I got from before. And nothing about the artist. Maybe it was me. Maybe I moved around. I don't know, man. But so I'm slowly working at them. I got the one covered up. And also there's this really cool feature about being a tattoo artist nowadays. You're not expected to be all sleeved up and faced up and everything. And so, because I faced that a lot when I was younger too, is when I first started, it was like, well, you don't look like a tattoo artist. Where are your sleeves and blah, blah, blah. And then I started owning it and being like, well, what does me having tattoos have to do with what I can do with the machine, right? What actually is the correlation? Because knowing where a body part hurts, you can gain that experience or that knowledge simply from the several people that got ribs done. You know they hurt, right? But the other thing is tattooing is, the pain is so individualized. What hurts for me might not hurt for you, right? And vice versa. So I have this young girl, I think she might have been 18 or something, full script. Like, I don't know if it's a song or what, full script on the ribs, like all the way down. Sat like a champ, like a rock, like a stone. And then I had this dude, and he comes in and he's like crazy, like just built, right? Like, you know, like one of those gym people that I want to be. And barely got through 3 letters on his chest, right? So first of all, females are built for pain. They generally will handle tattoos better, generally, but that's not across the board. But you can't ever know exactly how bad a tattoo is going to suck until you're right in the middle of it. Unfortunately, there are some universal spots for sure, like the front of the neck, right? The chin, underside, palms, hands, fingers. It feels like you're tattooing on bone. So anywhere that doesn't really see the light of day or get touched very often would be like the inner thigh. Can you imagine? No way, man. Some tattoos I'm doing, I'm cringing because I'm like, I know that hurts. I know how bad that hurts, and it's electric, and no thank you. I'm okay with my minimal line work tattoos. Yeah. I got my face done. I got my face tattooed in Calgary. So my lips and I got eyeliner and then my eyebrows all in one day. And I was so glad I was in Calgary because nobody knew me because I look like a cartoon character. My mouth is like Kylie Jenner. You could blindfold me with dental floss because my eyeliner was swollen, and then my greasy black eyebrows. That's great. I mean, like, there's so many nerve endings in the face.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, the numbing cream didn't do great,
But it's a learning experience, and now it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Live and you learn. So if you could take your shop anywhere in the world, where would you want to take it?
Nowhere. I don't think I would take it anywhere. I'm okay here. Grand Prairie's great. Like, it really is. It gets a bad rap sometimes, and it's kind of unfair. Like, people have this perception of Grand Prairie, but if you live here, you'll know that it's not actually unsafe to walk down the street. It really isn't. And most houseless people, they aren't really out to get you. They're just out to get whatever they're getting, right? And so unless you're part of that industry, like a part of that community, I mean, most people don't have any issues with them in Grand Prairie, right? You're going to have crime just like any other municipality, right? Like break-ins and you know, all that kind of stuff, and theft and whatever. But I don't know. I've just really enjoyed Grand Prairie. I've always enjoyed it. It's a good city. There's a lot of opportunity. It's a trailblazing city for sure. There's a lot of ballsy entrepreneurs here, breaking barriers for sure. And it's a young city, right? Like the average age here, I think, is like 37, 38. But we have everything that we need to live and grow. So I think it's great. I don't think I'll ever move from here. Unless my son moves, then I'll have to follow him like a stalker. I'm not quite sure. Hopefully he doesn't, because he's in law enforcement now. And so if he decides to move to go somewhere else, I probably will have to follow him. But I don't want to, and he's going to know about that. So, yeah.
He'll get the earful.
Yeah. Do you need that job?
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And then last question. It doesn't have to be specific to tattooing or anything we've talked about, but what would you say is the best piece of advice you've received throughout your life?
Oh, man, there's been so many. I'm going to say stop stressing out about what people think of you because they're actually not thinking of you. So, I mean, like, I started doing like public speaking and interviews and stuff like that, and I used to stutter and and ah and like go blank like a deer. But when you actually figure out that everybody is, and this sounds rude, but it's really not, but everybody's self-absorbed, right? And when they're watching somebody talk, you're thinking about like, hey, I like those shoes, you know, or that's a great outfit, or what am I going to eat later? Or my partner really irritated me this morning, or whatever, right? You're always in your own head. Everybody's always in their own head. So then to be up in front of someone and thinking that everybody's hyper fixated on you and what you're doing, actually doesn't exist, right? And when you let go of that, I feel like it's freedom. It's freeing, because then you're realizing like, hey, so what if I said something stupid like 2 minutes ago? Everybody forgot about it. So why am I going to lose sleep and overanalyze that to death for the next 5 years like I used to? You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yes.
I don't know. I think I've just become a little bit more comfortable with myself and who I am and what I'm doing, where I came from, and stop giving a shit, I think, really, about other people's opinions, because if you do, it's going to drown you. No. That's what I think, and also if I did worry about other people's opinions, I would have stopped the school as soon as I started it, because nobody wanted me to do it. Yeah.
Well, so. I'm sure that all of the students that have since attended, and you are very happy that you didn't do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I've been pissing people off ever since. So.
And you can continue to, in the best way, though. In the best way.
That's what I mean, right? Like just not quitting, and
Yeah.
not stopping just because somebody told me to.
Oh, for
But that
sure.
applies to everything. It applied to me when I first started trying to learn how to tattoo. Someone told me not to. I'm like, as if, right? Starting my tattoo shop because someone wouldn't rent a space to me, and I opened a bigger one. And then starting the tattoo school because I want to help people, and somebody telling me not to. So like I said, my entire life has been spent pissing people off. And so like, whatever. It is what it is. I'm enjoying it.
It's a great way to live. And you're so cool. Like, you have so much to share.
Yeah.
So worth it. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is pick up the black part and hold it like a pencil. The grip, whichever hand you are. Okay. Now, excuse me, with tattooing, and it's incredibly important to always know where your needle is. Okay. And the reason why you want to do that is because you don't want to tattoo your other hand, right? So if you're not paying attention to where that needle is in relation to your other hand, you will absolutely tattoo your hand. Okay. So the next thing I want you to do, find your pedal and just give it a couple quick little taps, just so you can kind of feel what it feels like. Okay. All right. So the machine has already been set up for you. And like I was saying before, this is a coil machine. This is the OG. This is how tattooing started. And actually it was an engraving machine and a doorbell. That is, and then some crazy person decided to put it on skin, which is kind of neat. Anyways, so everything has to be bagged. So whenever you get a tattoo, the clip cord, if they have one, but the machine for sure, will be bagged. So it has to have those barriers on it if it's this style. If not, sometimes you'll see them just wrapped with black tape, or plastic, some kind of plastic, okay? It's because you cannot sterilize tattoo machines without wrecking them, and so they have to have barriers on them. And this isn't just a, we decided to do it. It's actually Alberta Health Services. You have to have that, okay? Yeah, so the stencils have already been applied to your fake skin. So then the next thing that you're going to do is grab your, the only thing that takes ink off of fake skin is baby oil, okay? So you're gonna use that, and then what you want to do is just pour a tiny, like one little drop on top of your stencil. Yeah, anywhere. And then with one hand, start massaging it in. The reason why we need liquid, some kind of liquid, so with real tattoos, this would be like some kind of ointment, right? There's many different brands out there. It doesn't actually matter. But the idea is that if the skin is greasy, the needle will glide across it better. Okay. So if this is real people, you'd be doing your 3-point stretch, because when you're tattooing skin, it has to be like a trampoline floor, not a bouncy castle floor. Because if it's a bouncy castle floor, your needle will stick every time you try to move it across. That's the purpose of stretching the skin, okay? And even ink distribution. So now that you have the moisture on top, you're going to dip into, before you do it, when you dip into a tattoo ink cap, if you can dip just the needle into it, you'll have less of a puddle on the fake skin, okay? Because it gets kind of hard to try and tattoo through puddles, because you got to figure out where your needle is, if that makes sense, okay? Now you can dip your needle into the ink cap with the machine running or with it not running. But when it's running, the movement of the needle up and down will actually draw the ink up into the tube, okay? So like the tip, this part here. So that's where the ink sits. They're not hollow needles. You have to, it's almost like a pen quill. So once you run out of ink, you got to redip it. Okay, makes sense? Okay, cool. So you can run your machine and try to dip just the needle. Don't push it all the way down, because if you touch the bottom, you'll burr your needle and you'll scar your customer. But also it splashes back in your face.
I'm sorry, we would put it on, I guess that's...
Anywhere. Yeah, all over. Yeah. Perfect. So you can see your little needle there?
Yeah.
Right? Push on your pedal. Now you want that little needle, you need to guide it along wherever you want it to go. Okay? So with your machine running, run your machine, you can see your needle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're guiding along the path.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And light is absolutely critical for tattooing.
And so do you start the needle before you touch the
Yeah.
skin, right?
Yeah. Then when you're done that line, instead of like aggressively wiping your skin, blot it. Because then you'll protect your stencil from wearing away too quickly. But before you start again, you have to have more moisture. So you'll be using this all the time. Okay? When it starts looking like you're not getting any more ink, that's when you can blot it like that, and then put more, then redip, then start again. Okay? So you hear the bogging of your machine? That's normal. Because as the skin creates resistance against the needle, it'll change the sound and it'll kind of sound like it's bogging down a little bit. That's normal. But when it gets so low, that it means that you're in the skin too deep. Yeah. You guys are doing great.
This is so difficult. I cannot draw a straight line.
It's a lot harder to draw a straight line than I thought, but I find it easier going up than going down.
Me too.
Yeah, up's a lot easier.
If I go sideways, it's like it goes wavy.
Yeah.
Yep. Way more time consuming than you thought, eh?
Oh yeah.
So liners, which is what you guys have right now, they're shaped like a little pen, like a pen or a pencil. It's a round point. But shaders, round mags, are shaped like a mini paintbrush. They're flat.
Oh, I think I've seen that before.
Yeah.
That'd be so difficult to use.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
oh my
Yeah, they are. Take a little while to learn, yeah.
Now I understand why tattoos take such a long amount of time. I also don't understand how the curve happens. Like I find myself getting caught on like the S here.
Oh
like the
yeah,
needle, like,
yeah. So it'll be because you're actually, when you're going around the curve, you're actually pushing in more, and then getting caught. So you have to stay at the same height all the way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're packing that really good.
Thank you.
That's actually really good. Yeah, looks surprisingly good. Yeah, very good.
It's going.
Yeah, it is. You guys are doing great.
This is so hard.
It's mesmerizing though, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like it's easy to lose track of time when you're like focused, like hyper focused like that. Yeah. Fantastic. You guys did great.
Thank you. That was so hard. I broke the skin.
Yeah.
So no one ever got a tattoo by me because it's definitely
Was it frustrating? Did you find it frustrating?
not like, so I was getting frustrated because I wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
And then I started just writing as if it was like a pen, and then it got a little easier. But then I like couldn't fill things in because I don't think I was pushing it hard enough. And I started
And you
pushing
can't
too hard.
You can't pack color that quick.
Yeah. And so
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It was very fun though. Wow.
Fun. Well, you actually all of you got farther than I was expecting. So that's perfect. At least you have the logo. Like at least all the letters are outlined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Those are yours to keep. You can take them home.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to show my family.
Yeah.
I got pretty far in.
Me too. It's so like relaxing.
And you don't want to quit, right? So when I'm tattooing and then somebody doesn't want to go anywhere, and I'm like, damn, man, I really want to finish that. Yeah.
Hey, just finished up with Bobbi Jo at the Alberta College of Body Art. Oh my gosh, so fun.
It was literally so much fun. We got to tattoo, if you guys saw, not on each other, unfortunately.
Thank goodness
literally.
I ripped the
Literally.
skin on my fake skin by accident. I think I pushed too hard at one point.
My
So
hair's doing it now. Anyway, it was super fun. She was a really good person to interview, like a very interesting person. It was such an engaging interview. Like I think it was like over an hour, but literally it felt like 15 minutes. Like she was so captivating. Her hair was bright red, and I was actually obsessed with it. She had a cute little bow
She's
in
so
it.
pretty.
Love her.
Yeah, she was just as cool as we read about, and I was so excited. It was such a cool experience.
And like
so,
the school sounds amazing, and all like the safety precautions that they have in order to make sure that like you as a tattoo artist or like a body piercer, like whatever you want to be, you have that knowledge of the safety and also like the the legal aspect of it as well. So it's a very good place. Like I wanted to do tattooing, and if I was still a career I was going to pursue, I would definitely come here.
Oh, 100%. I mean, she was wonderful and had so much knowledge about tattooing and all that stuff, but also just her resiliency and this idea, like we had talked about, of maybe things aren't, like, maybe they're not exactly what you've done before. Like, she hadn't done that side of, like, business or education kind of stuff, but she still literally did it. And I'm like, what a queen. So much knowledge, so kind, so willing to share and explain her story and help us understand how to tattoo. I mean, I wasn't good at it, but she did give us all the tools we needed to be successful. Exactly. So if you're in Grand Prairie or interested in pursuing this kind of thing, I highly recommend to check it out.